Let's talk about the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Can President Trump use that to fast-track deportations? That's what we're going to talk about. And at the end, I'll kind of give you my thoughts on what I think, if I think that he can do it and pull it off or not. But I really didn't even know this was a thing until President Trump said that he might try to use it. So let's dust off the cobwebs and dig into this. Now, a lot of people on the left are saying that, oh God, Trump found a loophole. Yeah, President Trump found a loophole, and we're about ready to drive a busload of deportees through it. It's not, look, it's not a loophole. This is a law that's been on the books for over 200 years. That's not a loophole. I don't even think loopholes were invented until, I don't know, Democrats found out they could find votes at 3 a.m. It was at least that time period when a loophole was invented. So this is not a loophole. It's plain, simple, one of the earliest acts that you can read where it's like, wow, this actually makes sense. You can understand it. Like any of the laws written today, what are they? 1,000 pages long, some obscene thing where you can't understand it. This you can read quickly and understand it. So anyway, let's dig in and let's see what we think. What is the Alien Enemies Act? It was enacted in 1798. I guess that was, from the title, you probably could get that, but it was. It allows the president to detain or deport foreign nationals from enemy countries during war or invasion. It was intended for national security to prevent espionage and sabotage. So if you just look at that, it's talking about an invasion intended for national security. This Alien Enemies Act seemed like it applies exactly to the situation that we're having. Not using it would be like not using a lifeboat and instead saying, oh, no thanks, I'll just swim. Why would you do that? It looks like this is applicable. We can use this and we can clean up a lot of these gangs, illegal immigrant gangs that we need to get out of here. It's perfect. We should use it. Now, from the act, here I think is the key language that we're going to be arguing about and worrying about in the future. Whenever there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States. Those are the conditions under which the president can then remove them and quickly take care of them without having to go through the normal hearings and all that. So, but this is what we're going to be arguing about. So we don't have a time of war, but we're going to be arguing about, is there an invasion occurring or not? Is there a predatory incursion happening or not? But that's the language of the act. So one thing I want to point out is, okay, clearly we don't have to have a war because the act states if there's a declared war or an invasion or predatory incursion. So clearly the act provides for there being less than a declared war. Okay, so I've seen some people acting like this is only for wartime. No, it's not. This is clearly contemplates not being at war because it's got this other language in there. But if you're a lib, you don't see that. I love watching the progressives try to explain how the words invasion or predatory incursion don't mean what a dictionary says they mean. Like the mental gymnastics they go through is incredible. They'll say, no, we're not being invaded. No, we just have millions of unwelcome house guests who are causing Americans to just disappear. That's all. We do have a court case that talks about what the word invasion means. Now, this was in the context of the Constitution, so not necessarily the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, but it is the same word, so I think that it's at least persuasive that they would be interpreted the same way. And so we have this Ninth Circuit case that said that the word invasion is a political question. Courts historically defer to Congress and the President to define what constitutes an invasion. The Ninth Circuit in 1997 ruled that determining an invasion is a political question, not judicial. The courts noted that there's no clear standard that exists to judge when migration becomes an invasion. So, and that's from the Ninth Circuit, which is the most liberal Circuit over California and a lot of the lib places. Yeah, the Ninth Circuit. That's the same circuit that thinks the Second Amendment is optional. That one. So it's kind of fun that they're the ones who actually said invasion is a political question. Having the Ninth Circuit say that determining an invasion is a political question, that's great. That's like PETA admitting that bacon smells good. I find it kind of interesting that the same people who are saying that invasion in this act means that you have to have a declaration of war or you have to have armed battalions of troops from a foreign country coming in. Those people who are arguing that, they're the same people who say that the term insurrectionist in the Constitution just means people who are taking selfies walking through the Capitol, or a grandma with the MAGA hat is an insurrectionist. That's all it takes. But somehow when we get to an invasion, then basically you need an army with tanks coming across the border. Other than that, there's no way. And those words are used together. They're kind of similar in the sense. So I just find it so interesting that people on the left view one so strictly and the other one is like, well, I mean, he had a relative that voted for a Republican, so clearly he's an insurrectionist. So an invasion needs tanks and fighter jets, but an insurrection only needs a spicy meme put on Facebook. So as you see people on the left argue about this, just take a mental note of how fun it is that they are on completely opposite sides of construction of those words, depending on whether it's invasion or insurrection. We have used this act before. So we have used it in the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. Historically, it's been applied to nationals of countries officially at war with the United States, but as I pointed out, the act does not require that. And notably, it did lead to the internment of individuals without due process. This act did play an initial role in the World War II Japanese internment camps, but I think that was mainly done under an executive order. But from my reading, I think initially some of that was justified under this act, which, anyway, citizens were being detained without due process. Critics will immediately jump to these World War II internment camps because really there's no difference between detaining a law-abiding citizen and deporting a violent gang member who is here illegally. Why let the facts get in the way? It's being reported that President Trump is planning on using this act today or soon. I checked the news today and I did not see that he had officially announced that yet, but many people in the press have been saying he's going to be announcing it soon. So I'm assuming that it's going to be coming any day now where he actually starts using this in this context. He plans to invoke the act to deport violent illegal immigrant gang members, such as the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang, and then I think also MS-13 is another one. He plans to bypass standard immigration courts, removing suspects without hearings. And critics are going to argue that Trump's plan expands the law beyond wartime use. Which again, what I said, it doesn't require a declaration of war. It doesn't require us to be at war. But that's what they're going to say. So, I mean, this seems like this would be a great opportunity to clear out some of these violent, dangerous gang members who are here illegally and just get them out of here. But I can see how this would not be a good idea if you're worried about your fentanyl supply chain. So what are the arguments in favor of using this Alien Enemies Act to help clean out all these dangerous illegal immigrant gangs? It allows a swift removal of these dangerous foreign gang members. It bypasses the overwhelmed immigration courts. I think the current backlog is over 3.6 million cases. Thank you, Joe Biden. And it strengthens border security and public safety to help move these things along and get this backlog taken care of. Some folks are just outraged that we might actually bypass some of these hearings to move some of these people out of here. They talk about these violent gang members as if they're some kind of, pharmaceutical entrepreneur who's just misunderstood. They're engineers, really. No, they're not. They're not. Did you see the videos of them taking over the apartment buildings? They're not doctors. They're not engineers. They're not scientists. I mean, they know how to hold a gun. I'll give you that. Tell me that you're worried about your drug connections without telling me you're worried about your drug connections. We can't deport dangerous gang members who are here illegally without a hearing. There are going to be plenty of arguments against President Trump using this. Here are some of them. So people will argue that it risks violating constitutional due process and equal protection, which courts have recognized even undocumented immigrants possess. So they're going to say those are being violated. If only we hadn't let them all come across the border in the first place illegally. See, that's why it's better to just not let them come in illegally. Because the moment that they do have some rights attached just because they broke in, which is just asinine that somehow the Biden administration would think that was a good idea. But hey, you got to do what you got to do when you're trying to recruit voters from all over the place. Another argument against this use would be going back to the internment camps of World War II. They're going to immediately... I've read several articles on this already, and progressives, they're just going to keep beating that drum. That's what's going to happen. Facts don't matter. They're going to treat American citizens in World War II. They're going to look at American citizens in World War II and illegal immigrant gang members who are committing crimes. They're going to look at them as the same, which is kind of telling, isn't it? Okay. So those are going to be some of the arguments that they will make against President Trump being able to use this act in this way. It's kind of funny that Democrats only care about civil liberties when a criminal illegal immigrant is involved. If it's an American citizen, they just don't seem to care. Honestly, when was the last time you saw one of the, Democrats talking on MSNBC or CNN, any of those, who they were concerned about an American citizen's civil liberties? You can't think of any, can you? I can't either. They only seem to care about criminals who are here illegally. It's nuts. So after looking at this act, looking at the facts, digging into the law and some of the historical precedents that we've seen, the Alien Enemies Act hasn't been used this broadly before. So it is going to be a use that's broader than other ways that it's been used before. Not necessarily beyond the scope of the language in the provision because we read it together, but it's going to be used more broadly than it has. It's likely going to face extensive legal battles if it's implemented. Absolutely. I was checking the lawsuits against President Trump trying to implement his agenda, and I think there were over, I think I have the numbers right here. Let me just find these. Yeah, so there have been more than 100 federal lawsuits that were filed against the Trump administration since his inauguration. That's about 3 lawsuits for every business day. And as of today, there have been 124 lawsuits filed trying to stop President Trump from implementing his agenda. So, yeah, there are going to be more lawsuits. If only the Supreme Court, you remember the Supreme Court case with the $2 billion, and they just decided to let the district judge be the super president and force President Trump to spend that $2 billion on foreign aid. If only the Supreme Court had stopped that, maybe it would have slowed some of these leftist judges down from all wanting to be supreme emperor of the universe, but they didn't, and now we're looking at 124, and by the end of next week, who knows what the number is going to be. So when President Trump tries to use this act, certainly there's going to be a bunch of lawsuits that are filed trying to stop him from using it this way. But I think it's going to come down to, it's going to hinge on who gets to decide what an invasion is. And I think who gets to decide that is the president. We have that case from the Ninth Circuit. It's a political question. I do think that is a political question. And some of my basis is this. We have, okay, Congress, they're the ones who get to declare war, right? But we don't need war. We need an invasion or predatory incursion. Now, if you look at military conflicts around the world, tons of those, almost all of those going on right now, the president has been deciding. The president decides when to send special forces here, when to send some troops over here. He's doing that all by himself. Congress is not involved at all. And I think that is a great analogy to an invasion here in this country. So if the president can decide what to do on military conflicts all over the world, guess what? He gets to decide if we have had an invasion or not, and nobody else. That's how I think it should come down. Now, the leftists are going to file this with a progressive judge that they handpicked, and the judge will obviously come and say this is an unconstitutional use of the act. How dare you? Plus, the Supreme Court gave me a go-ahead to do whatever I want because they didn't stop us a few weeks ago. So I don't think the district court will go along with it. I don't even know of an appeals court. I think it'll be filed in D.C. because that's the bluest, most leftist place in the universe. So, and I don't think the D.C. circuit will do anything. I think they'll probably say, yeah, you're right, it's unconstitutional. But I do think the Supreme Court will say, this is a political question. The president gets to decide if there was an invasion or not. And clearly President Trump had a mandate with his election. The people want this. The people want his agenda to be implemented to clean this up. So I think that's what should happen. But when I predict stuff, it sometimes goes the other way. So we will certainly see, and I'll try to keep an eye on that. Thank you for watching, and also thank you for watching my headlines and my YouTube shorts. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you next week.
Please like, comment, and subscribe.